Let's be real. Having a loved one in the hospital, it's nerve-wracking. You know it's a place for healing, but you also know things can go wrong. Every single decision matters. But have you ever stopped to wonder how doctors and nurses actually know what the best decision is? It's not just a gut feeling, not by a long shot. There's a blueprint, a kind of scientific detective work they use to find the right answers. And we're going to break down exactly how it works. So here's our game plan. We're going to follow this scientific detective story from start to finish. We'll kick things off with a pretty dangerous problem, then join the quest for actual proof. We'll see how these medical detectives ask the perfect question, how they gather all the clues, organize the evidence, and finally, how all that data leads to decisions that literally save lives.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Our story starts with a very common and frankly very serious problem that happens inside hospital walls. It's something that can take a routine visit and turn it into a total nightmare, especially for older patients.
I mean, really, think about it. Your parent, your grandparent, they're in a hospital bed, it's an unfamiliar place, they might be weak. How can we be 100% sure they're safe from a really bad fall? What actually works to prevent that? This isn't just some abstract question, it's something medical teams have to solve every single day. Now, to answer a question that important, you can't just rely on intuition or what you think might work. Modern medicine, thankfully, demands proof. It requires a really structured, methodical quest to find what is truly effective. And that whole process has a name. It's called evidence-based practice, or you'll hear it called EBP. This is pretty much the foundation of modern healthcare. Think of it like a three-legged stool. You've got the best available research, you combine that with a doctor's or nurse's real-world experience, and you factor in what the patient actually wants and values. It makes sure that care isn't just a guess, it's an informed, calculated decision. All right, so before our medical detectives can even think about looking for clues, they need a crystal clear objective. They can't just ask something broad like, how do we stop falls? It's just too vague. They need a really precise, targeted question that's going to act like a roadmap for their entire investigation. And this is what that looks like. This is the mission brief. It is the exact question our investigators are trying to answer. Just look at how specific this is. It nails down the population, the exact thing they're testing, what they're comparing it to, the outcome they want, and the time frame. This isn't just a question. It's a detailed plan of attack. This type of super structured question has a name. It's called a PICO question. And it's not just some fancy acronym. It's an incredibly powerful framework that turns a fuzzy concern into something concrete and, this is the most important part, something you can actually find an answer to through research. So let's break that down letter by letter. Each piece gives the search a laser focus. P is for population. We're only looking at hospitalized adults over 65. I is the intervention, a specific, structured program. C is the comparison. What are we measuring it against? In this case, standard care. O is the outcome we're hoping for, a reduction in falls. And T is for time, over a 6-month period. See? Every single part narrows the search, so we only get the most relevant clues. Okay, so we've got our perfect question. Now what? Well, now the real hunt for evidence begins. But just like in any good detective case, you know the clues come in all different shapes and sizes. You don't just look for fingerprints. You also have to interview witnesses. The exact same thing is true in medical research. To really truly understand a problem like preventing falls, our medical detectives know they need to gather 2 totally different kinds of evidence. That's how they get the complete story. So the evidence breaks down into 2 key types. On one hand, you have quantitative studies. Think of this as the hard data, the numbers, the statistics. It's the what. How many falls were prevented? What was the percentage drop? Then, on the other hand, you have qualitative studies. This is the why. It's the stories from nurses, the interviews with patients, the observations. Why did a program work? What made it difficult? You absolutely need both to solve the case. And believe me, this isn't just a casual search online. The blueprint here is strict. For this question about fall prevention, the investigators are required to find a minimum of 6 relevant articles. And look at the specific mix they need. At least 4 have to be quantitative, the numbers, and at least 2 have to be qualitative, the stories. On top of that, the evidence has to be recent. This makes sure that any conclusions are based on the latest medical science. So the detectives have their 6 articles. But right now, that's just a stack of paper, a pile of clues. The next step is absolutely crucial. They have to organize all of that information so they can start to see the patterns. And to do that, they use a tool that every great detective loves, the evidence board. In the world of research, this is called a literature summary table. It's just a way to lay out all the key info from every single study side by side in a really systematic way. For those quantitative studies, the ones with all the numbers, the evidence board tracks the hard data. You can see there are columns for the study's purpose, who they studied, and most importantly, the major findings. This puts all the bottom line numbers in one place, so researchers can compare results across all the studies at a single glance. Now, the board for the qualitative side looks pretty similar, but check out that last column, key findings/themes. This isn't about numbers. This is where they organize the stories, the insights from interviews, all the observations. They're looking for common themes that help explain why the numbers turned out the way they did. So we've asked the right question, we've gathered all the different types of clues, and we've organized them on our evidence board. Now comes the final act, the whole point of this exercise, turning all this meticulous work into a real-world decision that's going to make care better and safer. Because when you look across those summary tables, suddenly the patterns just jump out at you. Maybe 5 out of the 6 studies all point to the same conclusion, that this one specific program dramatically reduces falls. Now a clinician can recommend a change, not based on a guess, but backed by a mountain of organized evidence. So let's just recap that blueprint one more time. It all starts by asking a super focused question with that PICO framework. Then you go out and gather both the numbers and the stories, the evidence. You organize all those findings in summary tables to find the patterns. And all of that leads directly to an informed decision that can actually change medical practice for the better. It's the path from a question to a confident answer. This whole process isn't just for preventing falls. It's an incredibly powerful tool that you can apply to almost any question in medicine and honestly, probably in your own life too. So now that you've seen how the blueprint works, what other big, complicated problems do you think we could solve just by asking the right question and searching for the evidence,